The benchmark price for single-family homes in Calgary has actually decreased from last month, indicating this chart here. Is this the beginning of a fall, or is this just a blip in the radar? Let's go figure it out. Hello, my name is Adam Fyfe, your Calgary real estate agent. If you're looking at getting into the market, even if in 2024, it is very important that you take all of the information in now and create your game plan for next year. This market has been historically hot, and it is very important that you set up a game plan well in advance. Go ahead, book a call. The Zoom link is in the description. I promise I'm easy to talk to. Single-family homes in Calgary now cost $696,100, up almost or over $68,000 from last year, but down $600 from last month. Now, the very first question that people ask is, well, what do you get for $696,000? Well, it is a 3-bedroom upstairs, 1-bedroom downstairs, meaning that it's a totally finished basement. It is a double attached garage with about 1,500 square feet. It is a natural gas forced air furnace. The lot size is just over 5,000 square feet. Poured concrete foundation, and it was built in 1998. So when you see the benchmark price for the entire city, that is the attributes for that benchmark price. So let's go and dive into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to read what the Calgary Real Estate Board has written about single family homes in the city. Feel free to pause this video and read it on your own or skip to the next chapter. Inventory levels remained at record lows for the month as sales to new listing ratios remained relatively high at 76%. The decline in inventory levels has been driven by homes priced below $700,000 as supply levels show some improvement for homes priced above this level. Meaning the affordable product in Calgary is very hot, right? There's not a lot of inventory in the things under $700,000. If you are above $700,000, there's a lot more, or maybe not a lot more, but there's more inventory for you to choose from, therefore a little bit easier of a time for you to find something. While detached sales improved over levels reported last year, much of the gains were driven by the higher priced properties with some supply options. Overall, homes priced below $700,000 continue to struggle with less than 1 month of supply, which is a very hot market. Typically 3 months of supply to 4 months is considered balanced conditions. Anything under that is a seller's market, and anything over that is a buyer's market. So realistically speaking, less than 1 month means that all of the product would be sucked up super quick. Despite persistently tight market conditions, the unadjusted benchmark price remains relatively stable this month compared to last month, as a monthly price adjustment in west end of the city offset monthly gains in all other districts. So right there you can see that the west quadrant of Calgary has had a decrease, even though every other district has seen an increase in price, which is putting the overall price point down. Overall, at the benchmark price of $696,000, prices are still 11% higher than levels recorded last year at this time, with the year-over-year gains ranging from a high of 20% in the east districts to a low of 9% in the city center. Whew, all right, that was a lot to digest, but let's continue on here. So this graph here, what we started with, basically shows the inventory, the sales, and the price point. The price point is the red bar here. You can see, even just compared to September of last year, how much of an increase that we've seen over the last year. Last year you see a dip pretty much going right to December, and then January, February starts to take off. Now, with this recent price reduction in this sector, I would argue that it's not so much a reduction as it is more of a stabilization. So you can see that the sales, just like total residential, took off February to June, then they dropped right off in the summer, which is not uncommon, and then they stayed relatively flat, as well as the inventory. So there's really not much change going on in this market over the last 3 months. Things have stayed fairly consistent when you look at the entire city. Now, when we look at the year-to-date sales, this is interesting. We're not going to touch on this very much. You can see that the year-to-date sales for the detached sector has actually stayed relatively low, especially when you compare 13, 14, 2021, and 22. The year-to-date sales have been limited by the amount of supply on the market. Now, when we look at the new listing side of things year to date, you can see just how low we are. We actually have the same amount of new listings that we did have in 2020 when we reached the pandemic. There is just not enough people coming onto the market to offset the amount of people looking to buy product, which is pushing up that price by a dramatic amount. So this graph here showcases that months of supply. So the months of supply is just an indicator to say how busy the market is, right? How fast is product moving? The red bar is the trend. You can clearly see it fell dramatically since 2020, and it's relatively stayed flat 2022, 2023. Obviously, there was a little bit more months of supply last summer compared to this year, and I would have to imagine it's going to stay relatively, what would you call that, horizontal. I don't think it's going to move too much up. I don't think it's going to move too much down. So with that being said, let's start to break this down. So this chart here is the months of supply, and we're only going to concentrate on detached for this specific video. Now, this chart here showcases every single quadrant in its color scheme. You can see that the city center, which is purple, has over 2 months of supply, which is the slowest or the most inventoried quadrant in Calgary. Now, obviously the pricing is very high in that city, which we talked about at the beginning there, where things priced over 700,000. You can find product in city center under 700,000 for sure, but it's just not as nice. When you start to look at places like Calgary West, which is the second most, if not more expensive than city center, you can see that it is also above 1.5 months of supply. Everything else is kind of hovering near that 1 month to 1.5 months, with East Calgary being the most affordable quadrant in Calgary, having the least amount of supply, being under 1 month. So if you're looking in East Calgary, be prepared to be in the most competitive out of these 8 districts. So let's kind of continue on here. Now, this chart is very interesting because it just kind of gives you a glimpse. It kind of gives you an idea of how much each quadrant is priced at. You can see that the city center and the west in the detached sector are actually neck and neck for their benchmark price. You can see it drops all the way down to northwest, and it goes southeast, and then south, and then north, and then northeast, and then east. You can kind of see that little drop there. Now, what makes this chart interesting, and I don't think a lot of people realize, is the benchmark attributes that are affiliated with each quadrant. Yes, of course, city center and west are neck and neck, roughly being about $880,000 for the benchmark price. But when we look at the west and then we look at the city center, we start to compare what you get. So in the west, you can see the square footage is actually 1,880 square feet, but in city center, it's only 1,400, yet they're the same price. You look at the west, it's 2000, built in 2000. You look at city center, it's built in 1955. So if you're looking for a specific product or a specific type of house, yes, you can look at the benchmark prices of those quadrants, but what are you getting in those quadrants to get that price? I can tell you right now, people that are looking in the west probably are not looking in city center too much, because if you're looking in the west for newer products, you're probably not looking in city center as much. You would have to imagine for the same attributes for west, right? The 1800 built in 2000, and you put that in city center, it would go from 880 benchmark price to probably over $1 million, right? If you've got an 1800 square foot property built in 2000, you're probably looking at like 1.2, 1.3 potentially. So really important that you keep that in mind. Now, for my homeowners out there, this is kind of an interesting chart just to showcase roughly what's going on in the city. This is a year-over-year price growth. We're not going to touch on it too much, but you can see that East Calgary, which is the most expensive, the cheapest quadrant in the city, has seen the biggest increase year-over-year, where Northeast has seen an increase of about 16 to 18%. Everything else is actually like neck and neck. They're all around 10 to 11% year over year. But why does that make a difference? Well, if you're curious about what your home is valued at, and you just want to know what has actually gone on with the equity in your property over the last 12 months, I am a partner in an AI software that gives instant home evaluations. It's a very interesting program. You put in your home address, you do put in your contact information, and it spits out an instantaneous value for you. If you want to dive into it together, you can let me know that, yeah, you're interested in knowing a little bit more detail. We can do that. If you're not looking to sell, that's totally fine, but it still is an ability for you to potentially leverage your equity or just have a general understanding of what's going on. I will call you. I will say hello. I will let you know that I'm thankful for using my services, but at the end of the day, there's no pressure here. If you don't want to make a move, don't worry about it. You can still use this service free of use. So with that being said, let's look at the microeconomic breakdown for detached properties in all of Calgary. Let's figure out what's going on. Right off the hop, you can see the highlight here in Calgary West. They had a 2.74% decrease month over month. And then there's also Calgary East that saw a 0.35% decrease month over month. which in turn has actually dropped the total resident or the total single family price point by 0.09. When you look at every other quadrant, you can see that they've all seen increases. Pretty interesting stuff here. So when I remove this now, you can see that every other quadrant has seen, you know, anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000 increases month over month, but the $24,000 decrease in Calgary West, mind-blowing. It's absolutely crazy. I actually looked at the market. I wanted to know what the heck was going on in West Calgary, and there was just a lot of people that secured pretty darn good product for under ask price. So good on those buyers agents for actually fighting for the best interest of their clients and getting that price point down a little bit. You can see that with such an expensive quadrant, that one quadrant can really shift the entire city, even though the other 7 quadrants didn't do that bad at all, right? You can still see that Calgary North actually increased by $5,400. And then you look at, let's just say, City Center, another expensive quadrant, actually increased by $3,500. But the loss of $24,000 in Calgary West is enough to put the whole single family home bracket down. And funny enough, it actually put the whole total residential, everything. This one quadrant, this one stat here brought the entire number down. It's pretty mind-blowing. So where is this going? I would argue that this is a blip in the radar. If Calgary West sees more price decreases because more products staying on the market and people are just now going to drive that price down, we might see a little bit more of a correction. But when you look at the other quadrants, everything else is still increasing. So I would say it's more or less a blip in the radar and not so much a correction, which I would imagine some news outlets is going to spin on you. So be careful about that. If you have any questions, please go ahead, comment on the video. I love your comments. I really like when people give me feedback, criticize my channel. If there's something that I missed and you didn't like, tell me about it. That's totally fine. I take time and I actually reply to those comments thoughtfully. If you want to know more about the market, go ahead, shoot me an email, text me, or book a Zoom call with me. But that's about it for this video. I just smacked that out in one full take, no edits. And I appreciate everyone who supports the channel. We'll see you at the next one on condos. And that's it. Peace.